Well, here we go. We call it that Sunday show from time to time, each and every week, as a matter of fact, usually right after a game. But I specifically wanted to focus on Alabama. So that Sunday show with Fred White, brought to you by Harrell Group Security Solutions, dropping a little bit later in the week. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button if you want to hear the latest on Tennessee and the Crimson Tide. The Vols beat Texas A&M, and Fred, I'm in the minority. I know that people want to see those chunk plays. I know they want to see Jalen Hyatt running down the field and Hendon Hooker throwing deep balls one after another and picking up 30, 40-yard plays. But I'm enjoying the strategy, or strategery, if you want to call that, as George Bush once called it. I'm enjoying seeing Josh Heupel show off his coaching prowess. He may not have that same skill set in his offensive huddle, but they're still winning football games, Fred. And last I checked, that win-loss record is the most important.
It's definitely the most important. But you got to look at a lot of other things that happen in that football game. There's going to be games where you don't have 40 points, 35 points, 50 points. There's going to be some games in the SEC that you actually have to grind it out. And I get it. I understand. I don't see many schools right now in the SEC that are just putting up wads of points right now, because when it comes to talent, we get some of the top SEC talent when it comes to athletes on the defensive side of the football. Guys who can rush the passer, guys who can cover. A lot of those guys want to play in the SEC because they know that's where the best talent is. So hands down, we're playing against some of the best defensive talent across the country when we're playing in the SEC. Texas A&M is no slouch either, by the way. You look at their defense, and that defense was one of the best defenses in college football. Their defensive front, that's front seven, probably one of the best in college football. They lost two guys in the football game that I think hurt them some. But if you look at some of the things we were able to do in the game, we were still ready. We were able to establish the run. We're also able to stop them from running the ball. I think this win was more so for our defense and our special teams, more so than for our offense. You have games like that.
You do. Fred, turning to Alabama, they are a program that appears to be trying to find their way at the quarterback position. Now, you guys had to make a big change at quarterback, going from Peyton Manning to T. Martin, but there was never any doubt about the direction. And there's really not been any doubt, at least publicly, about Tennessee going from Hendon Hooker to Joe Milton. There has been public doubt. They played more than one guy at Alabama. If you're a player going through that, how challenging is that you don't know who your ultimate on-field leader is?
Well, see, and that's the one thing where I've been trying to get people to understand what we have. Until Joe Milton messes up completely or something like that, and I'm not wishing that on him, and I don't think that's going to happen. I'll knock on wood for that. Stop trying to make a quarterback controversy, because if you have a quarterback controversy, you have no quarterback, which also means you don't have a good football team because you don't have a clear-cut leader. And that's the issue. That's a problem. If you look at Alabama, the game they did lose, I think that caused some of the issues. However, switching back and forth quarterbacks, doing those type of things, it makes a problem for your football team. We had the same thing happen years ago when we had Eric Ainge and one of the Clausens, Rick Clausen. When most of the guys on the team thought Rick Clausen was the guy, and Eric Ainge had the bigger upside. However, I think that season went awry simply because the locker room was split. When you do something like that and you keep changing quarterbacks, that's one of the situations that can happen in your locker room. You cause a rift. And you can't win championships when you got a rift in your locker room. You got to have all guys on one accord and all guys doing the same thing when it comes to chemistry. If you don't have that chemistry, you don't win championships. And if we're not here to win championships, we shouldn't be here at all.
No, so you bring up that point, and I wanted to get there eventually, but there has been more and more talk about Nico Iamaleava, and the talk has been about Joe Milton going 11 of 22 for 100 yards passing. You pointed out that a lot of these screenplays are extended running plays, but you start gambling with a quarterback change, you're gambling basically the season right now. And even though the Florida loss happened, Fred, they've got everything still to play for on the table. If they win out the rest of their games, they're going to win a national title.
They win out the rest of their games, they're winning the national title. They'll be in the playoff situation. I think we have a good place to be sitting right now. You're an SEC football team. You lost to an SEC football team on the road. And it's Florida. You're one of your biggest rivals. You look at what you have against Texas A&M and how our defense played, and how many. The one thing that concerned me was this: how many penalties we had. But if you look at what we did in this game, with a team like a team like Texas A&M, who also played Alabama the week before, kind of gave us a preview of what both of these teams are going to look like. They didn't get a chance to hide much because they had to try to win that game. They put up 20-some points on Alabama. We put up 20 on them. They only put up 13 points on us. For us defensively, this is the best outing we've had all season. Yeah, you can count Virginia, but they're not Texas A&M. Yeah, you can count other games throughout this season, but if you look at the pass rush and how much pass rush we had, if Texas A&M doesn't have a quarterback who's athletic enough to keep throwing the ball while he's falling down, you have several more sacks in this game. James Pierce coming after the quarterback, and on those last couple of drives, I watched that kid get to the quarterback, and I made a comparison of him earlier in the season, like Leonard Little. Man, he's almost like the second coming. But I'm going to say he's the first James Pierce Jr. I can't wait to see this kid get it done on the football field, and I don't know if he's able to be blocked one-on-one. Someone will have to figure out what to do with that kid, which opens it up for someone else. Just keep coming like that. If you look at what we've done defensively in this last game, coming in Alabama, that makes a big difference. Because if you can put pass rush on a young quarterback and have them switching in and out, you never know what can happen. I watched our secondary get better in a week. And not just because they were covering, because they had pass rush. You don't necessarily have to put the quarterback on the ground. It's called pass rush. If you're rushing the passer, making him throw it when he doesn't want to throw the ball, it gives you a better opportunity to pick it off because you don't have to cover for so long.
Yep. This program, along with Fred White and me, Dave Hooker, is brought to you by Harrell Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques. These are trained professionals that have to go through school for 60 days. Oftentimes, they're former service members, former police officers that they're out to protect your children and protect schools. We've heard of the tragedies. We've been in private schools. Now, want to expand that out to public schools. So go to your school administrator, make your children more safe, and say, Harrell Group Security Solutions. Give them a call. Do that. And I want to get the law changed so that we can get Harrell Group Security Solutions in public schools as well. When you have a guy like James Pierce and the pass rush in general, we've seen Kamal Haddon go from a player that people love to pick on to now he may be one of the better cornerbacks in the SEC. That pass rush, Fred, helps a whole lot in making defensive backs like him and like you were look a whole lot better.
Absolutely. If you don't have – if you think Charles Woodson wins the Heisman Trophy without having a good pass rush, you're crazy. I don't care if you're the best corner in the country. If you don't have a pass rush, you're going to get exposed at some point. You can't cover for that long. I don't care who you are. You're going to make some plays because you're a playmaker, but you won't be that guy like that. I just don't see it. And our secondary looked a lot better because those things happen. When that ball comes out a split second faster or a half a second faster, whatever it may be, it makes that defensive back, it gives his chances of defending it, also intercepting it go up. That's probably about 40, 50%. And if, as a defensive back, if your chances can go up 40, 50% for an interception or a knockdown, I'll take it all day long.
You know, Fred, this time last year, we had the discussion of Tennessee playing mobile quarterbacks, and there had been several, one of which was Jaden Daniels, who Tennessee handled quite well. And from a gap protection standpoint and discipline, I thought Tennessee was really dialed in to mobile quarterbacks. And part of the reason it was preached to them week after week, if you look at the schedule last year, they really haven't faced that guy. Graham Mertz at Florida can move a little bit. And then South Carolina, Spencer Rattler can move, but they pretty much hemmed him in altogether. And last week, Max Johnson at Texas A&M, he's a pocket passer. I think the one concern – I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if that's correct on Max Johnson. Maybe not having the yards as far as rushing.
Okay.
But if you can watch what he did in the game, he was very mobile in the pocket. He did a lot of things where he had rush coming around him and he got away from it. Rush coming to him and he stepped up and ran for a few yards. Rush coming to him and he still got the ball off. So those things still, I think, when people say mobile quarterback, I think more so you're looking for a guy who can run, who's a Lamar Jackson. You don't always catch those, but just being mobile in the pocket and also being able to get out of trouble or harm's way when that rush is coming makes you mobile as well.
Well, let me ask you this then. Is Jalen Milroe, just as far as running ability, not mobility in the pocket, but as far as running ability, the scariest quarterback that Tennessee has faced at this point?
To this point, probably.
Yeah.
To this point, probably. And I hope we come with a game plan of rushing, keeping our guys up the football field and rushing the passer. Listen, Dave, what we did defensively this past week needs to be celebrated. I talk about this all the time. I say 13 points or less, 300 yards or less, 100 yards or less when it comes to rushing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But look where we are. We are 13 points or less, 300 yards or less. They only have 50 yards rushing. Now, that's a defensive outing. That's one of those that I will pat those guys on the back and say, man, that's the best defensive game you've had all season. That's what our standards were when we played back in 1998. And I just watched it happen by these guys. That was amazing to me. But but going into Alabama, I think you're going to have to need more. You're going to need a little bit more than that. You're going to need the same type of effort because you got a guy who can run back there. But if he's running, that means he's not throwing it either.
Yeah.
How many times can he take a hit?
Yeah, the A&M was they were at their best against the rush. There's no question about it. But let me throw some more stats at you. It's pretty incredible what they were before then. And I think we scratched our head and we said, is that because of the opponent or not? But the simple fact is we're halfway through the season and this stuff tends to melt itself out. And right now, Tennessee is top 10 in yards allowed per carry. And I'm talking the nation, not the SEC. Top 10 in the nation in rushing yards allowed per game. We are on the verge, I believe, of talking about an elite defense. May not happen this year, but it may. And it may happen next year. There's just an incredible collection of defensive players on this team.
Absolutely. And that's what you got to have defense to win the game. And here's the other part of that. You know, another reason why I pay attention to, I always say this, and people look at me like I'm crazy, like the game has changed and, you know, time of possession doesn't matter as much. Actually, it does. If your defense is on the football field, I don't care if you scored 50 points. If your defense is on the football field more than your offense is, or a long clip of time, they get tired over the year. Over 10-game season, you played almost a half a season longer than your offense because you're on the football field so long. One of the things I realized was when it comes to time possession, Texas A&M had the ball 30 minutes and 48 seconds. Tennessee, 29-12. That means those guys had a chance to get off the football, get out the football field, get to the sideline, get a little bit of rest, and then go back out there fresh. Instead of we're scoring so fast, we're back on the football field, and then that's when you make mistakes, when you're tired. Fatigue makes you make mistakes and also causes you to have injuries. So I just think that type of game planning now helps us right now. We don't have that fast track offense like we did last season. Honestly, it may play in our favor later on in the season.
No, you're right. And when I look at this defense too, I feel like as they face Alabama this week, there's a couple of strip sacks, big plays. We saw the forced interception to Gabe Judy Lawley because of pressure. There's at least a half dozen, 8, maybe 10 turnovers. They're just lurking in the weeds out there for the remainder of this season. I believe that firmly.
Absolutely. If you got a pass rush, you got an opportunity to make some plays in the secondary and your linebackers as well. And here's the other part of this, Dave. I got to give credit where credit is due. that football, that offensive line, that run game, I got to give kudos to that offensive line. Let me
Amen.
tell you something. Running for 32 yards against probably the best defensive front, one of the best defensive fronts you're going to face all season. Alabama's coming in next, and I understand that they got a good defensive front as well. Georgia does too later on in the season. But if you can do what you just did against Texas A&M, that defensive line, they got probably 4 guys that are going to play on Sundays when it comes to down linemen and linebackers. I truly believe those guys are going to play on Sundays. If you play this well against those guys, 232 yards rushing, 4.7 yards a carry, hey, man.
It's pretty good.
If you can do that, you've done a pretty good job. And you talk about players of the week and all those type of things, I feel like the players of the week should have been our Tennessee offensive line when it comes to the SEC.
Yep, that's a pretty good mixture for success. When you talk about a great defense and a great offensive line, you would know you won a championship with that. And be sure and if you would like, pick up a copy of Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's 1998 national championship game. Wouldn't be possible without Fred White. When you see Jalen Milroe, who is finally settled in as the starting quarterback for the University of Alabama after they took a look at a couple of other guys, what do you see out of that young man? How stoppable is he? Is he good, great, elite, just average? What do you think so far? Still early in his career.
Still early in his career, I think he could be really good. I mean, that's possible. But you got to look at his numbers too. I mean, he has some studs out of the receiver position. You look at his last game against Arkansas, you're talking about 10 for 21, 238 yards. He have 2 touchdowns, yes. But when it comes to running, he was negative yards.
Yep.
So I look at those things and say, man, hey, it's a possibility that he's going to be good. Young guy, can get some things done with his legs, but he didn't do too well with his legs this past weekend. I see him as a kid that's going to get better as time goes along. I don't know if he's ready for it right now, but he is playing at home. It's always harder to play on the road, but he's playing at home. He don't have to worry about a crowd noise and those type of things. I think that pressure goes to Joe Milton because they're going to get loud just because it's Tennessee.
Yep. There you go.
But I like to see our defensive line get after this quarterback because he's shown me right now that he can get tackled, he can get sacked, and all those type of things.
So you never lost to Alabama. And nowadays
we owned Alabama.
You owned Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds crazy nowadays with the run they've been on. But what's your favorite moment of beating Alabama? Is there one in particular that stands out more than the others? I look at the smile on his face.
They all pretty amazing. They're all pretty amazing. Very quite amazing. I mean, I think beating them in 1998 at home was good, but I think I have to go to 95 was definitely dominant.
Yeah.
But I also think that 96 football team that they had was a better football team when it comes to defense and what they brought to the table. When they came to Knoxville, we went in for a dogfight. And I can recall getting hit or hitting the tight end on kickoff team. And we both collided and he ended up out of the game. And I came back into the game, but I think they had to come and get us both off the football field. That one stands out to me because I don't remember a whole lot else about the game, but Jay Graham running down the sideline for a touchdown. I do also recall being on the sideline, them giving me smelling salts to make sure I was that ammonia so I can get myself back together, which today's game I wouldn't have been playing again.
No, different day and age. Somebody would have taken your helmets instead of giving you smelling salts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I just remember watching Spencer Riley turn that corner on the pull to make that kick out block, and Jay Graham hitting that crease hard as he could and hitting his head on the goalpost. And that, the rest is history. And it was also like, it was not a fluke that we beat Alabama like we did the year before. And it kind of showed everybody, hey, man, we're no longer scared of Alabama. And we didn't expect to lose them after that.
Your kids can be safer with Harrell Group Security Solutions. That's harrellgrp.com. They bring you that Sunday show with Fred later in the week this week because we want to talk more about Alabama and scout those guys out. But I'll tell you what, you need to scout out harrellgrp.com, Harrell Group Security Solutions, highly trained individuals, oftentimes former service members that will make your children safer at school. What about that? Let's avoid those tragedies in private schools. Now let's get them in public schools as soon as possible. Go to your school administrator. Say you need to know about Harrell Group Security Solutions. This guy will make you safe. Fred White with his picks. You want to give me a pick for Alabama, Tennessee?
I think it's going to be very similar to what we just witnessed against Texas A&M. Same type of game. I think we have an opportunity to get after their quarterback. I'm sitting here looking at a kid from Arkansas that had 3.5 sacks. They sacked the quarterback 5 times in this game. So I think what we've just seen with our pass rush, that gives us a chance to be in this football game, even though it's on the road. I'm going to give us can we put up 30 points? If Arkansas can put up 20 and Texas A&M can put up 20, I think we can put up at least 20 points. So I'm going to go 24-17, my Volunteers.
Never would have thought it after last year, but I tend to agree with you. He's Fred White, the former Vol for life. Love visiting with him. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.